What's up, everybody? That time of the day, that time of the week, that time of the month.
It's been that time of the month for a while.
Have you been around lately? It's always that time of the month.
It is.
I mean, it's always podcast time.
It is.
What did you think I meant?
I don't know.
Oh, did you see how professionally I slid that music out?
We'll call it professional.
Yeah. Shut up. I went to college for that, you know.
Did you?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. I went from controlling that pot to never mind.
Smoking pot?
I never touched the stuff. How you guys doing today? Third episode this week. We will be airing this one next week?
Next week.
Yeah, next week. We can't wait.
August 21st.
August 21st. Jeff's got to go on vacation. He's actually getting neutered.
Yeah. Finally.
Yeah. I don't know why. Got to use it to lose it. Anyways.
They know.
We got a great show today.
Yeah, dude.
Syracuse very own Peter Merluzzi is going to be on right now, and he's just got a great story to tell, but the Syracuse part is the smallest piece.
It is.
Yeah. Unless we want to talk for an hour.
Nah.
So, Pete, join us. Where's the door knocking?
Oh, look at that. There we go.
There you are.
Where's the door knocking?
Yeah, didn't we say
We did
that?
yesterday.
Yeah, we had
Yep.
Oh, yeah, come on in,
come on
Mr.
in.
Peabody. Yeah.
You got to edit that now. You're going to have to go back and edit that whole thing.
Nope.
Nah. Looks better like when it comes after the fact, like, yep, Mike did something stupid again. You know?
What you need is a door closing, so when he walked in, you know.
No.
Oh.
I was adjusting your mic because I forget to do that. I apologize.
That's
Do that when I
whatever.
walk out.
Yeah, we'll get you walking out.
Yeah. We'll
Don't
close
let the
door.
podcast slam and hit you in the ass on your way out, right?
Yeah.
So, for people who don't know, Peter, which one? Peter.
It's good.
Okay.
It's good.
Pete's from the Syracuse area, but he has such an extensive background in music and the whole music business.
Yep.
Most of our guests are the folks that are standing behind the microphone all the time. They couldn't do half of that shit if it wasn't for guys like Pete.
You're right.
So, they not only would the wheels come off the bus, but they wouldn't have a bus. So, they couldn't afford a bus.
Yeah.
If they could afford a bus, they'd piss the money away in the wrong way. So Pete's been
That's
in
right.
charge of a lot of aspects of this business.
Yep.
And I'm going to let Pete tell a little story about how he started with music, and because it's very interesting. And take it away, Pete.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. It's fun to kind of be doing something that's so Syracuse centric. Actually, it's an upstate New York centric, I should say. I grew up in Syracuse in the Lincourt area. I started taking music lessons from a guy named Buzz Kua back in the late 80s, I guess, mid 80s. I guess it was mid 80s. And Buzz was kind of one of the original, one of the original Syracuse music scene guys, after World War II. Started teaching full time here, and he was the lines are blurry whether our families are exactly related somewhere along the lines or if we're just Italian paisans.
We're all related.
Yeah, we're all related somewhere along the way. But you started taking lessons from him, and then as I kind of got to college age, I went to work for a couple of record labels while I was in college. I did radio while I was in college, and somewhere along the way, I started selling T-shirts at concerts as a young man. I think the first show I did, I think I was 11 or something when I sold T-shirts at a U2 concert at Saratoga Springs, back before they had the amphitheater when it was just on the horse track. And I think it was a U2 show.
That's
And
awesome.
if I remember correctly, Primus was the opening act. So
Oh, wow.
I think I was 11 or 12 when that first happened, and I did that for many years. And that was my gateway to getting on tour. I started out as a T-shirt guy. I became an accountant not long after that, and then a tour manager quickly after that. So, and then I guess I've delved into many other aspects of the business along the way, whereas After 25 years of touring, I stepped off the road, and I'm now I'm a broker for a private jet company. So I fly a lot of the people I used to tour with, and their tour managers and friends of mine. They call me to help them find, the best deals on planes when they need them. And then my little side hustle is I work with a record label out of New Jersey called Deco Entertainment. And I've gotten to kind of fulfill the thing I wanted to do when I first got into the music business, which was to be an A&R guy. But as I was going through college, that part of the business started to collapse. I got to watch it fall apart as I was getting my degree.
Right.
And I'm getting to do that now. So I've kind of come around full circle and getting to do a little bit of A&R and some signing and some vinyl reissues for this little label. And it's been a great way to kind of keep my hands in it and keep using the knowledge that I have, or the years of experience that I have, and still love the music that I have.
I think in a little research that I've done of you, I mean, you won an award for your accounting, didn't you?
Yeah, a couple of them. Yeah, I got back to back. I was going for the three-peat and I got denied. I won one year when I was working for AC/DC on the Rocker Bust tour, and then I did the first couple of years of the Guns N' Roses reunion, and I got one for that year as well, the first year of that.
Which, if you don't know the business as well as you do, like guys like Jeff and I didn't know you had like a tour accountant, and it just didn't. But it makes total sense because So your job was dealing with the venue, ticket sales, rolling in with merch sales, and then everything that went out as far as the planes, the buses, the opening acts, the whole nine yards. Or was that the opening acts were?
The opening acts had their own, or if I had to oversee their payments and things like that, we had to do better. But for the most part, it was all the comings and goings and spending and debits and credits on a tour. So you kind of, I always say that it's more of a glorified bookkeeper's position, because you're kind of the eyes of the business managers and the management and the agents out there as the accountant. So you deal with the ticketing and the promoters and the venues, and you're the one fighting when bills try to get slipped in or things that don't apply, or you fight over silly stuff like that all the time. But the idea was to make sure that the band was making every dollar that they were supposed to be getting.
Right.
And after doing that for a little while, once they know you're good with the money, not every band can afford to have an accountant on the tour, so the tour manager does a lot of that stuff.
Right.
And so I was getting calls about tour managing and doing both roles. And I did that for, I'd say the majority of my career was spent doing the dual role tour manager, tour accountant job.
Now, are you hired by the band, or are you hired by the label?
I get hired by the band or their business entity, right? So if it was a business manager, if it was an accounting job, it was often through the business manager, because you're really their arm out there on the road. As a tour manager, you deal directly with management a lot more than you did as the accountant.
Right.
So that was for those jobs when it was both roles. I dealt with the management most of the time.
And the reason I ask is, I'm sure there was times that, because you kind of have to play the heavy too, because if the band is just going to do something stupid, it's just like, let's order this or let's do that or let's go spend this money on frivolities, that you have to be like, no. They come to you and say, hey, these guys want to do this, and you're like, no, it's not in the budget. So
yeah, I mean, there are times when you get to that point. Everybody has their own money. These guys would, I got lucky. A lot of the guys that I had, that I got to work with, were past the self-destructive part of their careers, or the young stupid phase. I got to work with a lot of guys that I grew up listening to. So I got to catch them when they were a little bit older and a little bit wiser, or a little bit more sober, I guess would be right. Literally. But that was I mean, every once in a great while, you'd have to put your foot down, or you'd have to find a way to encourage them not to spend that money.
Right.
But luckily it was, if it was out of their budget, we tried to handle that before the tour started.
Right. Right.
Once you're out there, if they want to go out and do something they want to do, they go out and do it, whether you told them it wasn't a good idea or not.
Well, you did say Guns N' Roses, so I figured there might have been some shenanigans. So
yeah.
It's funny. A lot of my career was actually intertwined with the guys from that band. Actually, it was another Syracuse guy that hooked me up with Velvet Revolver at the time. Nick Kua, who was Buzz's son,
right,
is one of the biggest tour managers, I think, in the business, especially from the 80s through the 90s. And I mean, he's working with Kiss now. He works with Cher. He's just, his career is that level. He's the upper echelon of the business. And I got a phone call from him, and he became a mentor for me through a lot of my career. And just by sheer luck, I was doing T-shirts for Papa Roach and Slipknot on the 2001 Ozfest. And I walked into the production office, and Nick was sitting behind the desk, and I went, huh. And he looked at me and he goes, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm flinging T-shirts for these two bands. And he's like, that's amazing. So we got to spend a lot of time together on that, and it was a really good, it worked out really well. It became kind of a cornerstone of my career. He introduced me to a lot of great people that helped me forward my career through the years. And Nick's, I can't thank him enough for everything that he did, on the way. So
that's awesome.
I got a phone call from him one Christmas. I think it was 2007, and he said, "Listen, I got this job. I think you're perfect for." He goes, "I can't finish it. I've got dates I've committed to with Cher. They've added on these 3.5 months or 4 months of a tour." And he goes, "I think you're the perfect guy for this." And I said, "Okay." I said, "If you think I'm the perfect guy, I'm the perfect guy. So, I'm not going to ask any questions." And he told me how much it paid. I said, "Okay, that's great." And he kind of gave me all the details, and it was going to start, like the second week of January. So I had like 3 weeks to get ready for this thing. And I said, "Okay, great. I'll be ready. Send me the details." And he goes, "Terrific. I'll let management know." I said my goodbyes. And then before he hung up the phone, I went, "Oh, who is it, by the way?" And he goes, it's Velvet Revolver." And then I heard the phone click. And I thought to myself, I'm like, "Oh, shit." And I didn't, because I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I think I was 31 or 30 at the time. So I was still, I was always kind of the younger guy on my tours. Even as I got to be a tour manager, I was still younger than a lot of the people that were on the road with me. So I didn't really talk about my age much. I kind of I've always looked like this, I think, since I was about 17. So I think I was able to hide it for a long time. And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I hope I didn't overcommit here,
Right.
Yeah.
And I was there with them for the last 4 months of that band, trying to keep that thing on the train tracks, just to get to that last show. Because Scott had already let everybody know he was going back to Stone Temple Pilots, and the band were kind of weighing. The first day I was there, the first conversation I heard was, "What are we going to do about this singer, and how are we going to find somebody new?" And I looked at Nick, because he was there for that first day, and I went, thanks, Nick." And we had a good laugh about it. But at the time, they were talking about doing one of those rock star TV shows,
right.
The incest thing just happened. And they were thinking, wow, we could do this. Mark Burnett wants to do it. Of course he wants to do it. It'd be the biggest cash grab that guy could have ever made, having those guys on TV.
Right.
And it was kind of a split thing. The band was half on board, half not on board. And it never happened, but that was the talk. And that was kind of going on the whole 4 months that we were out there. And Scott was just getting more and more self-destructive and defiant, he didn't care, he was going to leave, and he didn't give a shit,
Right.
So there was kind of it was a struggle, but I kind of earned my stripes on that tour. That was kind of, and I ended up getting a job from with Billy Idol immediately after that tour ended, and went out and filled in for him for 6 months, and I just ran after that, But the Guns N' Roses thing ended up kind of becoming a part of my life for the rest of my career. I helped Slash put his first solo band together, the Slash Miles Kennedy thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved in that from the ground up, and I left after about 3 or 4 years there, and then I went back and worked with them on Guns N' Roses as well. So
nice.
So you're saying that Slash could be our next interview?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's not out of the question. That's for sure. His story and his career are, wild. And it's funny that there's a couple of upstate New York guys that are tied to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, that
can't make promises, but I'll do it.
well, I think he kind of did make a promise that
I heard it.
Yeah.
I have it recorded, and we could edit it to sound like anything.
Yeah.
I get Brand New Sin a few opening slots on that tour, and that's
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I forgot that you're affiliated. You had a lot of help that you had given when those guys were making their go round.
Yeah, it was after Joe left. So I worked with him when Chris took over the lead vocal, and it's because I was well aware of them, prior to that too. But Kevin Dean and I grew up around the corner from each other, and Kevin called me up when they were working on Distilled, and Ronnie Dark was playing keys on it for him at the time, and they were really doing something different than they had done previously. And we talked about changing the name and all the things that you talk about when you lose lead singers and members of the band. And Chris was really adamant. Chris and Chuck, they had been there since the beginning, and it was Chris's logo and Chris's ideas, and a lot. He wrote the majority of the music and a lot of the lyrics as well,
right,
for years. And it was so he was like, because I just don't want to change it, because we've worked a long time on this one too, and he goes, and I just don't want to give it up,
right.
And then I was really involved in the next record, in the United State record. I kind of executive produced that record with them. I had a blast doing that.
Right.
Because to this day, if people haven't heard that album, if you're an old school Brand New Sin fan, that's great. But you should go and listen to that record, because it's sonically, to me, it's the best sounding record they ever did. And there are some great songs on it, and they really were stretching their legs, as far as musicianship went on those two records. So,
not trying to toot your own horn.
No. I mean, I didn't. All I was doing was telling people what I wanted it to sound like.
Right.
As far as because Ron over at Subcat was killing it.
Yeah.
And I'd call him and I'd be like, I love this, but you got to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, that's what I'm hearing. And he'd go back and he would do it, and he'd come back to me and he'd be like, it sounds great. And I'm like, it's just different stuff that we all listen to. It's like you guys are both music fans.
Mm-hmm.
I've listened to so many records and so many countless things over the years that there's certain tones and sounds that I love, and there's different ways to get aggression.
Yeah.
And Chris's voice isn't the voice that goes with the production that was on their first few records, right? It was a different, it's different texture. But man, there's a great way to get aggressive guitar tones and make it even heavier with a little distorted mid-range bass sound, and like just things that we played around with. And Kevin's drumming was massive, so we wanted it to sound massive.
Right.
And it was always, I just love that record. I still go back to it, listen to it today. It makes me smile. So it's fun that I got to be a little bit a part of that, and I love those guys to this day. I still talk to each of them, here and there, and we just lost Billy White, the guy that did a lot of their cover artwork over the years.
I saw that. That's terrible.
Also, the guy that did the Appetite for Destruction cover.
Right. Yeah. Because again, that was something that you helped. And when I saw, I think you posted it. Some of the hand sketches that he had done that you'd still had.
Well, that was something from his page. I didn't know him back when he worked with Guns. He was. I asked Slash about all that, and he goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, "He was just this young guy that." We started to see some of his stuff, and we loved everything he did, and the one thing I got to say about Billy is that not only was he incredibly talented, and I tried to get him involved in every project I worked on where I needed an artist after that, but he was also just one of the nicest guys that you could ever ask to work for in this business, work with in this business.
I think what blew me away was when I did see the sketches.
Yeah.
Like when we were growing up, no matter what band was the shit at the moment, you would see that one art major and he's duplicating the album cover and and you're going, dude, it was really good. So when I see the sketch, I'm like, wow, that guy really sketched that Guns N' Roses thing really good. But that was his sketch.
Correct.
That was his art. And I'm like, holy shit, to see it in that form was.
Yeah. I mean, the painting he did for the United States cover is mind blowing. Like I remember looking at it the first time I saw it and I was like, wow, like where did this even come from? And it's cool because Chris's whole concept of that record was, the deterioration and the enslavement of the population, right? Like it was just this kind of cool, end of the world kind of cataclysmic view of things. And Billy's artwork for that, it's like this, the pig was their logo and that boar's head looked like a giant spaceship and all the war pigs and the worker pigs down below, like hustling around. And when I first saw that painting, I'm like, man, I had no idea that that's what we were going to get back. You know what I mean? I had no clue. And it was such an amazing piece of art. I wish I had the original. I wish I had a painting of it or something like that,
Yeah.
But man, what an incredible piece,
That's cool. What's the most, it's just kind of a different twist on what we usually ask, but what's the most, I don't want to say, let's start with this. What's the most memorable tour that you did that you just was like, this has been nonstop, jaw-dropping, greatest moment of my life type thing?
The AC/DC experience is by far, like, to me, it's the pinnacle of everything I did, by far. I mean, I don't think the cool thing about it was my dad had worked for him a couple of times. I think he did Ball Breaker and Stiff Upper Lip. And so, my father, when he went on the road after he retired from the sheriff's department, he was his job was really tailor-made for the biggest of the big, So, I mean, one year he was out, he did Pink Floyd's Division Bell and Voodoo Lounge with the Rolling Stones.
Oh, wow.
Like that was 18 months of his life, 1994, 1995. And that was something that, those kind of tours they weren't necessarily the thing that I thought I was ever going to get to do. The rock bands that were doing those kind of tours weren't as prevalent in the 2000s and the teens than as they were in the 80s and the 90s.
Right.
So I got the call about doing AC/DC and I jumped at the chance. I was tour managing Heart at the time. And, it was time for me to move on. There was a change that needed to be made there. I did a lot of transitioning for bands over the years where I would come in after someone that had been there for 20, 30 years, right? And they needed somebody to come in and make a lot of hard decisions, right? So I got to be really good at that. And if I could say that that's one of the aspects of my career that I'm really proud of, that's got to be it. But then I got this call to do AC/DC as the accountant, and I would have been crazy to say no.
Right.
I didn't know at the time Malcolm wasn't going to be there, and then of course how it ended. None of us knew that what was happening to Brian at the time.
Correct.
And then with Axl Rose out there singing the last couple of months of the tour. But man, the entire first half of that, tour, first 3 quarters, I guess, of that experience were the best thing the best team from the top down, from their organization to the band to the agents to the crew and everything. It was, I can't be prouder to have ever been a part of anything than that. That's
cool.
That is cool. You mentioned,
and, Slash and ZZ Top, and I have a lot of highlight things that I did. Judas Priest that I got to work with for a while, and the Firepower record, and there's just been a lot of great highlights. But the AC/DC thing is probably if I had to pick a favorite, that was probably it.
Now you mentioned Heart. So you were instrumental in getting Kevin. That's a couple of those sit-in gigs.
Yeah, Kevin. So Ben, their drummer, had some stuff he had to deal with at home I think it was a family emergency situation, and they needed to fill in, and their regular guy. There was actually one or two guys that they had used on a regular basis that were both unavailable. One guy I think plays with Three Doors Down. I can't remember who the other drummer was that they were using, but they're like, we're kind of running out of options, and they asked me if I knew anybody, and I threw Kevin's name out there, and I said, he's unknown, but the guy's a great drummer, and
yes.
You're kind of asking somebody to come in with no rehearsals and play. Right. And I think it was like a corporate gig, and then, 3 or 4 gigs, right? We needed a week of coverage, I think. And Ben talked to Kevin, and they ended up making it work. And I think he flew into someplace if it was Illinois where we started. I think we did this gig in a park. There's this big amphitheater, free show in a park. And Kevin showed up and like with no rehearsals, and got in there and had to play this gig, and he killed it. And awesome. And I think the first gig he did was in Buffalo. It was in Darien Lake or something out there. There was a stage that it was in a park in Buffalo that we played. And it was a huge audience. It was like 10,000 people showed up like most of the time. And I remember, the reason why I remember this is because it was outdoors, and it's his first real gig. He was there to observe in Illinois and then did the gig in Buffalo.
Right.
And after they played the opening song, I remember him doing the final cymbal crash and then standing up on the drum kit, right, with his arm in the air. And I'm like, I'm sitting out there, I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Right? But he would, it was just pure like adrenaline and enthusiasm for what he was doing. But when you're in different people's camps, you got to learn your role there. But he,
your hired gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a great job. And I remember his family and some friends came out to the Watertown gig that we did. And now I think that was the closest thing he got to home. And I got a picture of his son sitting behind his drum kit while he's on stage, and he's looking back at him while he's playing. And I just thought, it's just, those are great memories.
Yeah.
Kevin I remember Kevin when I was a young kid, and Kevin was always like the cool older kid in the neighborhood that always treated everybody really well.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin was always cool to everyone. It didn't matter if you were 8 or if you were 18, Kevin was great for everybody. And I never forgot that about him. And we just kind of stayed in touch. And when I was in college, I did a press kit for the band Empty Web that he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys were amazing. I remember seeing them while I was home on a college break one year, open for some Kiss tribute band at was that nightclub that was named after like a salamander or something. I forget what.
Club Chameleon.
Yeah, the Club Chameleon. So we went out there to see it, and they were great, and it was very Sabbathy, and I loved the demo. I got the cassette. I think I still have the Empty Web cassette someplace, and I started playing it on my radio show in Florida, and I did this press kit, and I was in school. I was learning the ropes of the music business in my music industry program, and it was just. I wanted to do something for those guys because it was a band that I liked, and we just kind of kept in communication and stayed in touch. And I think it was almost 8-9 years later when they called me about the brand new synth stuff.
That's cool.
Oh, that's cool.
That's funny though. If you think about it, Kevin showing up to a gig at like Darien Lake, and security sees this guy driving in his beat up car, and he's going, I don't know, some guy out here in his car trying to tell me he's the fucking drummer for tonight. Yeah, kid. Move along, you're bothering me.
The best part, right? I will never forget this. He comes to the gig in Illinois because Ben was still playing that night. So they were getting a chance to meet and kind of go over the rig and all that kind of stuff. And I go out to meet him because I had a car pick him up at the airport, And so he comes in this town car, and he gets out. He's got a pair of sticks. He doesn't have a bag. He doesn't have anything. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, what are you doing? Did you bring anything with you? He goes, well, we're going to be in New York tomorrow. He goes, I don't need, he goes, what do I need? And I started laughing, and I'm like, that's too funny, man. He got out of that car, and he was so, like, he was ready to go, and I loved it. we had a lot of good musicians come out of that town, you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, Jesus, we're basing our show around it, around the people that have come out of here that have had affiliation with some of the greatest names. And I think our corral here, giving them props to bars like the Lost Horizon and you know, we since we've last couple of weeks we put up a picture of Greg Italiano on our wall because if anybody that helped shape Syracuse music, and not just Syracuse, you know, Guns N' Roses came through the Lost Horizon a lot of times before they even got a big stage. John Bon Jovi played there twice before he did anything.
Yeah.
Kid Rock, Lita Ford, Tesla, Motley Crue, Warrant, Great White. I can keep going, but I've seen all of them there, and it was a place that it was a musician's bar.
Yeah.
If you knew somebody was playing, you all went out and supported each other. So there was never a night when there was less than 200 people in that club. And then when the national bands showed up, it was 250 musicians, and then another 250 people that weren't musicians, or 300. And next, you know, you got 600 people, and his fire capacity was like $1.25. You know,
right.
And they all said the same thing. In fact, when I talked to Mike Sterto the other day, and he's going, the Lost Horizon and that frickin' pole, I was like, everybody remembers the pole.
Does,
you know,
everybody remembers the pole.
You know? So that's why Greg's on the wall, and he was like the master of ceremony for a lot of the musicians that came out of this area, you know. And you mentioned Brand New Sin, and Joe Altier is very thankful for all he learned from Greg. I think because later toward, you know, Joe was too young to play to be there when I was there, or even you're too young even when I was there. You know, bastard.
By 4 years, get over it.
Doesn't matter, brother. If you couldn't drink, you couldn't drink. You weren't cool. I'm just saying.
I don't think I ever got. I never was able to go until after I was in college.
See,
because I think I was 17 when I started college. So I left. All my friends were either playing there or hanging out there at the end.
Right.
By the time I graduated high school, and then you know, I didn't get to go until I came back. You know, and it was past the heyday at that point. It was, but you know, it was legendary.
Yeah,
it was legendary.
And I feel blessed that I was part of that. You know, I stopped hanging out there, and it not really stopped, but
yesterday,
1990.
Oh,
and so I was there throughout the whole 80s.
Right.
You shut up, fella. How are we friends?
I have no idea. You need me. I have information. You do not.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. He's got pictures or something he keeps threatening me with. I got to ask you. I mean, because again, we could go on a tangent, talk about the Lost Horizon for 2 hours.
We've done that already.
You've been around so many cool dudes, and to us, AC/DC, and I'm like, how cool is that? You know, and who. Even if you didn't manage or have part of their tour, there had to be an, oh my God, I'm meeting this person. Who's like the biggest fanboy moment that you've had? Because we ask everybody the same question.
You know, it happened to me twice with the same person, and it's Alice Cooper.
Really?
Okay.
That never worked for him. I was always a fan, but as I got older and started to really appreciate the kind of the massiveness of his catalog, right? And what he's done for music and what he did for hard rock music in particular. Alice became one of those acts. Like, I'm a huge Kiss fan, but without Alice, I don't know that there would have ever really been Kiss. And you know, people always talk about Zeppelin, Purple, and Black Sabbath. Without those guys, there wouldn't be anybody else. But Cooper, to me, has to be part of that conversation.
Sure he does.
Because those three bands never incorporated the shock rock end of things. He created that.
Oh, God. The coffin and the hanging and the blood and the snakes and everything. Yeah.
All of it. But those four bands, to me, are where every other hard rock band owes everything. Like, that's it. Everything that came after them came from those four bands. the Purple thing is the progressive shredder part of it. Sabbath is the dark doom and the heaviness, right?
Yep.
Zeppelin, that blues rock, which became hugely popular in the 80s and beyond. And it's kind of the timeless part of it, right? It's that will always be there. And then Cooper, who has no boundaries musically. He's done everything in his career, like from something that could be on vaudeville to, heavy industrial rock, right? I mean, he's just, there's one song on the Welcome to My Nightmare Part 2 that's like a tuba, the whole song is just that. It's brilliant. It's still Alice. Yeah. And I met him, I think I was working for the Goo Goo Dolls in 1999, another upstate New York tie-in, right? Weirdly. And backstage at the Phoenix Amphitheater, and I'm walking to the merch room because I was doing merchandise at the time. And this SUV comes flying in the back and almost runs me over. And it pulls into a parking spot, and I look at the license plate, and it just says Coop on it. And I was like, I don't know. And then he gets out of the SUV. He was driving, his wife and his youngest daughter, and then another car came in right after, and it was his daughter Calico, and she was driving her car in, right? So we're about the same age. I think she's a year older than me or something like that. So we're, he walked out of it, got out of the vehicle, and he said something to me, and I was just kind of like, I was caught off guard and stunned, and I didn't know what to say. Here I am working for the band. He's coming to see, and I was just kind of dumbfounded and didn't know what to say. And then years later, we were in France with Slash. I think it was 2010, and we were playing that club that the Eagles of Death Metal shooting happened in, right? I forget what the name of it is now, but we're there, and it's like the middle of summer. It's July, and it was 100 degrees in this place, right? And there was no air conditioning. It's an old building in France, and there's this heat wave going on, and I don't know how the kids survived that night, and the smell in that place was awful.
I was just going to say that. They're known for that.
The dressing rooms were air conditioned, and Alice was playing a festival outside of town the next day, and he and Shep Gordon came in, and Alice was going to get up and do a song with the guys at the end of the show. Well, he showed up before the show, and Slash was doing 2.5-hour sets at that time, and Brent Fitz, who was playing drums for Slash, had played with Alice, so there was another connection there. And Alice and Shep Gordon sat in my office while I settled that show, and for the whole 2 hours of the set, and we sat there and just talked about life and golf, and that was kind of like when I walked down to the stage to meet up with the guys before the encore started. I was kind of pinching myself as I walked out, kind of going, this is the guy. Like, this is the guy who, to me, started everything.
It's the guy that almost ran me over years ago.
Yeah, the guy that almost ended everything.
Did you tell him at least? Did you say, first time we met, you almost hit me?
I never even brought it up. I just, with him in a different capacity and different, mindset at the time. And
right.
I just had this great experience sitting there talking to these two guys that, when you go back and you watch the documentary about Shep and you see what the two of them created together, and then how they made it work. Yeah. Nobody's doing that anymore. Nobody does that kind of thing. And it's really just great that somebody documented it, but it's cool that I have that opportunity,
That's
to sit
for
there.
Sure.
So yeah, and I still pay to go see Alice every chance I get. So,
besides that, he's got a smoking hot guitar player, Nita Strauss.
Nita is pretty fantastic. I saw him with Orianthi.
Oh, okay.
In England, and I was really disappointed with her because she never played the parts.
Right.
The thing about Cooper's stuff is that it's had so many great musicians play on those records.
Yes.
You got to play those parts, and I think maybe Bob Ezrin kind of knocked that back into the band because for years they weren't. And so I got to see Orianthi, and then when Nita joined and I saw them with her, I was like, okay, somebody's playing the parts of the songs.
Yes.
And do a thing,
Yep.
And I really thought she was a good fit. I really enjoy seeing her up there. I think the dynamic's kind of cool.
Yes.
So.
What was probably the most iconic show, no matter who the artist was, that you were just, what was the biggest, the biggest crowd, the biggest something,
I'd probably have to go back to the AC/DC thing again.
Yeah.
We did a show in Austria at the Red Bull Ring, which is a racetrack, and I'm pretty sure that day that there was 150,000 people that showed up for that show.
Right.
It was the biggest thing I'd ever seen. When you see photos of that show, and one of our guys got up on top of the stage, and in between the horns, and took a photo of the audience during the daylight, and it was massive.
Yeah.
There were a handful of those on ACC. There were some cool festivals, we did some things down in South America. The Argentinian audiences, just, you watch 120,000 kids start to jump up and down when Welcome to the Jungle starts, and you feel the floor just doing that.
Right.
Those are some pretty cool moments, and getting to experience that in all these different places, seeing the different fans like in Japan and just different countries all over the world, really. Now I think back on it, all the places that we went, and I'm very blessed that I got to see a lot of the world, and I was doing it while I was working, but it was still, I got to see the world in a way that a lot of people never will experience.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'd love to see your passport.
I've shown a couple of them to people because I've got many.
Right.
I had to have two for most of the years I was out, because if we were going to one continent and we needed a passport to be sent someplace, we had to have a second one. So, I have one passport that looks like a phone book, it's about that thick. And it's just, I had to keep adding pages until you couldn't add pages anymore,
That's so freaking
to hell with this.
The Slash years were definitely big on that, because we toured 2010, 11, and 12. We were on the road for 10 to 10 and a half months each year. And each month we were in a different continent, so we would go from one space to another and go back again multiple times, because, the band was, it was a new project and they had a lot to prove at that time, and they had to break, they were breaking everything at that time. And it was great to be a part of that, put a lot of miles on. It takes a toll on your regular life, but it was, it was a great thing to be a part of.
I say forget the passport. Show me your laminates, and can I use any of them?
Yeah. The laminates probably won't do you any good anymore, but there's a good collection for sure.
I'm sure.
That's got. I mean, if you think about it, that's got to be pretty freaking impressive. Just the number. I mean, what do we have? 2?
I know, right?
We got 2.
2.
But I mean, that's freaking cool, man.
I bounced around a lot too. I got to be a part of a lot of big tours over the years, and Slash was kind of my longest term thing that I did. I think with one artist, I spent the most time with him, whether it was Velvet Revolver or the solo band or Guns. Yeah. So we're bonded. I actually did an interview with him last year for a radio trade magazine called Invisible Airwaves. And it was kind of funny because I had done the iHeart radio station with him. I was the host of the radio station when we did it. And it was me and him in the studio talking. And I would do interviews on the road with the guys. And we were kind of continually updating the station. So I was doing that as just a fun project to keep it going during those years. But it was great getting on the phone with him and talking with him about the last record when it was coming out. And, he was laughing. He goes, "It's just so easy to talk with you because I know who you are and what you're about. So I get it, and it's because, they're always on, and I could break him down. When he was talking to me, he was talking to me,
Right.
I love that. I got to interview Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick for the magazine, and a couple other, Al Petrelli from Sabotage.
Oh, from Sabotage. Yeah.
Yeah. So a buddy of mine, it's his magazine. So every once in a while I'll get the call to do one of those things. So I get to, still fun to do that.
Yeah.
I want to be him.
I don't think I can talk to him.
Yeah, we've said that a couple times, but this is definitely one of those, like, what a cool freaking everything.
I'm blessed. I can't I can't thank, I can't thank God or whoever, people. For me, it's, I'm very blessed. And, I thank my father because obviously he's the one that helped me get into the business in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And, and if it was up to him, he'd still be on the road every day of the year.
Well, hang on. Hold on.
He's 75. He's 75 this year, and he'd rather be out there than any place.
Yeah, but tell our listeners who are listening, hopefully that made sense. Tell our listeners where your dad is right now as we speak.
Yeah, tonight he is doing bootleg security at the Beyonce show in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium. So, and he keeps going. He's been doing it since the late 70s. He started doing it part-time in Syracuse, and then it gradually became, hey, can you drive here to do that? And can you drive, can you do 3 weeks with us on the road? And that's how it started for him. And then, he retired from the sheriff's department, and then was on tour full time.
If you give him a call later, tell him, if he's got like 300 bootleg Beyonce T-shirts that he's confiscated.
Oh no!
Wow, we could just like put a red X through the front, and then we'll put the good, the bad, and the ugly on the back.
Yeah, there you go.
No, we'll put it on the front with our tour dates on the back.
That's right. Yeah. We're not her. Good, bad, and the ugly.
We'll send you a gift package.
Yeah, Kilroy was here.
Kilroy was here.
Man, that guy's car is always nice and shiny, and he's buffing it with all these bootleg AC/DC T-shirts.
Inside out.
Yeah.
Everybody else that's been coming down here, it's funny because he's on the east coast of Florida, and he called me the other day. He said, "Dave, you ever heard of this girl? I think it was Carol G or something like that." I'm like, I have no idea. I've never heard the name before. And he goes, "She's headlining 2 shows at the stadium in Miami." And I looked her up, and she's like a Peruvian artist, or a Colombian artist. I'm sorry. She's a Colombian artist. And I'm like, I have no clue. But, South Florida has a fan base for that. So
right.
It was just, I'm like, man, sometimes he knows more about the stuff that's going on than I do because of the shows he's working.
Right. Well, it would have been cool if he was like, "Hey, my son's single. Here's his picture."
Yeah, right. No, it's not like he's so funny, man. It's at this point, we always talk about it. And he goes, you just went into a whole different world of the business than I did. My father is totally happy never walking backstage when he works. If he can stay out in the parking lot, harassing these guys that are selling fake T-shirts and, busting them and getting them thrown off the property or whatever, that's his happy place. He doesn't need to be backstage. He's never cared about any of that stuff. He worked for the Rolling Stones and Pink Floyd and AC/DC and all these other huge acts for years. He did the David Bowie 9 Inch Nails tour. He was just on all these different like crazy, things that he's done. Britney Spears, like all these different Britney Spears tours, all these different tours that he's done over the years. And none of it phases him. He doesn't, for him, it's the same group of guys out there selling fake T-shirts in the parking lot. And that's what he's done. It's like that cop.
I was just going to say, once a cop, always a cop.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, but he loves it. He still loves it to this day. And it's, it hurt. I think his biggest challenge is that it's slowing down because the industry's changed so much.
Right.
That they don't pay as much attention to protecting the copyrights and the trademarks anymore, which they used to. And that kills him, because he sees how much of a difference he can make. Sure. Or how much difference any bootleg security can make, and it just drives him nuts to this day. So it's like that police mentality and that, I can help you mentality, something that he kind of instilled in me. And it's, our careers were kind of funny because he spent 25 years as a cop and retired and went on the road. I spent 25 years on the road and ended up getting off the road during the pandemic and making a shift, and so the way our careers went, was kind of the opposite directions, but it's, I can't thank him enough for getting me involved because, obviously it gave me the opportunity to see so much of the world and experience so many things, so.
You know what? I'm going to say this before because I don't want, we got some time, but
yeah.
You say your father had that help somebody out mentality. And I got to tell you, Pete, I've noticed that in you. We spoke well, Jesus, but when we spoke for like 45 minutes because I was just like,
Yeah.
I think it's the Syracuse thing. We have that camaraderie, we have that commonality stuff, and we know we almost get each other, so we're shooting a shit. And we didn't even do this interview yet, and already Pete's like, call this guy, do this. I'm going to have him get a hold of you. And next thing I know, it's because of Pete that we have, Mike from the Guess Who.
Yep.
And now, he's guaranteed to get us Slash. So that's,
Yeah.
roll the tape back.
You know what, man? It's fun though. I love the angle that you guys are doing this from, and I think it's, Syracuse should have been on the map in a bigger way in the music business.
Somebody else told us that too.
I go back to Ricky Kua, and the bands that he played in with, like going back to the jazz stuff that he would do and the fusion stuff with Crack, like in the late 70s, early 80s, like way before I could go and see anything. But you go and listen to those records and you're like, wow, like where did these guys come from? And I always tell everybody, like, it's because winter's 8 months long. It's either you're either cooking drugs in somebody's barn or you take up a hobby or a craft, and so you're either a great woodworker or you're a great musician coming out of Syracuse, right? Like there's these things that you do. And those guys, when I listen to some of that stuff, just old cassettes of that stuff. And my mind is blown listening to those things, and it's music that I can't even comprehend, but it's like, it's just, you listen to it and you go, wow, like this was just one band from that time out of that area,
Right.
And, when people talk about, the guys like Dio who went on to do great things, but I mean, Dio started as, you and I talked about this, like he was 10 in a doo-wop group in the 50s.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And it was just crazy when you see that stuff.
Yeah. You got Dio, you got Elf, you got all those guys coming out of Cortland area.
Yep.
Lou Graham coming out of Rochester.
Goo Goo Dolls in Buffalo. I mean,
in fact, they're here tonight.
Are they?
Well, they're not here.
Not here, but yeah.
Oh, but I mean, in town.
Yeah.
In town tonight.
Yep.
Yeah. They were great guys to work for, man. When I was there for the Dizzy Up the Girl tour, and so I was their t-shirt guy. I was 21 or 22, and I spent 18 months on the road with those guys. And I left before the end of the tour because I took a job for an internet company back then, doing merchandise for them.
Sell out.
It was like a band kind of thing, yeah. And they were bummed that I left. And then about 6 months after I left, I get this package in the mail, and it was my first ever platinum record. And they sent me, and this is 6 months after I left the band, or after I left the tour.
Yeah.
I get this triple platinum album for Dizzy Up the Girl in the mail. So thank you for having worked.
That is very cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
It was 10 years before I got another one, but it was just, and it was, but those are the kind of guys they are,
Yeah.
It was, we had a lot of fun. And
who was your second one?
The second one I got, so you're gonna laugh at me when I think I told Mike the story, but
Slim Whitman. No.
Yeah, no. One of the things that has been the other highlights throughout my career have been connecting different people.
Yeah.
I was out with Nickelback on the Long Road tour, I believe it was, in like 2004 or 5.
God, when my daughter listens to this, she's gonna freak.
We did Canada in the wintertime.
Okay.
We started in January and it went through like April, and we did 52 shows across Canada. And we started in Vancouver, we went all the way across, and we came back and played all the venues twice. And you couldn't sell enough tickets to that tour. They weren't really sure what they were going to do for the rest of the year. And I had worked for ZZ Top the year before, and I was going back to ZZ that summer. And we're out, and we were in Denver, Colorado the same night Nickelback was playing the arena. So Billy Gibbons was like, "Oh, so what are you doing tomorrow night?" I said, "I'm going to go see the guys in Nickelback because, I worked for them for a little while, and I was going to go pop over and say hello." He goes, "That's that band that plays that song Photograph, right?" And I started laughing, and I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Play that song." He goes, I'm going to come with you."
Oh, cool.
Okay. So I take Billy Gibbons to this show to see Nickelback, right? And we come in through the backstage, and all the guys are like, the band were all excited to meet him and everything. We went out to the front of house and watched the show, and he's taking pictures like a fan, like he's out there taking photos of the stage with all the fire, and because Nickelback knew how to put on a show. I haven't seen the tour recently, but I hear the same thing. They're massive production,
Mm-hmm.
and Gibbons was just loving it, right?
Yeah.
So we go back to the hotel and call it a night, and like 3 months later, I get a phone call from the Nickelback guys, and they're like, "Listen, we're working on a new record. We'd love to have Gibbons guest on the album." And I said, "Okay." I said, "What can I do to help?" Because, can you introduce us to management and kind of make the connection and do this whole thing? I'm like, "Yeah, of course." So I introduced Bill Ham was still managing at the time. So I got to introduce their guys to Bill, and Bill calls me up afterwards and he goes, "Pete," and Bill was a very distinguished Texas gentleman, like very popular. I loved him. He was just brilliant character to be around and kind of get to experience that,
Yep.
And he calls me and he goes, "So tell me about these Nickelback guys. Are they good guys, or is this going to be, if we do this, is it going to be a good thing, or is it going to be?" No, it'll be. They're the hottest band out there right now, So a few months later, the record comes out, and Gibbons is on 2 songs, and Rockstar is one of those songs. So, about a year goes by, and that album was just exploded. And I hit up the old tour manager and I said, "What are the chances of getting like a platinum single or something for that?" And he goes, "Oh, I'll take care of it. I'll get you something." So I get home. I think it's probably 2 or 3 weeks later, and there's a box on my front door that's the size of a flat screen TV, like a 50-inch flat screen TV. I'm like, "What the?" I had no idea what it was.
Right.
So I bring it inside and I open it up, and it's this plaque that's like this big, and it's actually on the wall over here, kind of tucked in the corner right up.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
And I opened it up, and I had no idea that the album had sold 7 million copies at that time, and it's this 7 million plaque record for this whatever the Nickelback record was that album was on, or that song was on.
Yeah.
So, and I was just asking for a little piece for my own, my own wall of shame.
Yeah.
And that was the next one. And then I have a bunch from the time I was with Slash.
Yeah.
From international, like gold and platinum records from different countries, which is kind of cool. So I have a handful of those, which are really fun.
That is cool.
That is very cool.
So they sent them to you because of the collaboration that you helped with.
Yeah, they did that for me, and I've had to buy some of them because they're not everybody's selling so many records that it's like, yeah, we're going to print 1,000 of these. So sometimes you got to buy them, but as long as they're certified, then they're the real thing. So I've got a few that are pretty special, and they're good moments for sure.
Yeah, my daughter Samantha's going to flip her
Just
lid.
write down, yeah. These are 2 other people that he's going to hook us up with.
When she finds out that when she finds out he worked with Nickelback, when she hears this, she's going to flip her shit.
Jeff, if you know anybody that's got enough money that needs to buy a plane or something, let me know. We got to hook him up with something. I mean,
okay.
I need some business. I need some more. Transitioning out of this career is crazy, but it's been fun to be able to help a lot of my friends and people that I work for, and it's great when you're somebody they still trust enough or consider part of the family that they reach out to you.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever totally leave the business though? I mean, you're involved now.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think if I can keep doing the stuff I'm doing with Deco, and I signed the Guess Who, I signed Sass Jordan, I got to sign. I signed this kid out of Pennsylvania that makes haunted house music, because they were like,
that's cool.
Anything Halloween centric? And I'm like, well, not really, but let me look around. I'll see what I can find for you. And I found this guy online, and it's called Shadow Symphony. And he had like 8 records of this like creepy Halloween music, and it's like great he does music for like all the like local haunts and stuff like that you've probably ever been to.
Right.
They call him to make music for their attractions. And I reached out to him and I said, "Listen, we're kind of interested in maybe taking your music and putting it on vinyl. And we're doing the first record that he ever did is coming out I think it's up for pre-orders right now, actually, on the Deco page. And then he's got a brand new one he's just finishing up that we're getting ready to go into the production with, which hopefully will be out before the end of the year. So it's like a haunted drive-through thing. So it's going to be a series that we do. We'll probably do 2 of them a year on vinyl. All the CDs are out there and it's all available digitally. But you get to sign stuff like that, and it's great. And I'm doing some vinyl reissues with bands that I love late psych and early proto metal stuff. When you get bored with new music, I go backwards, right? I go and find stuff. I dig for things that I'm not familiar with. And I found this band from Connecticut called Yesterday's Children. They did one record in 1970. And as a vinyl collector, if you were to find a copy of that original pressing, it's like an $800 record, because there's just so few of them. They're so rare. So we tracked down the rights owners, got the license for that, and we're getting ready to do that next. It's our next project. We just put the order in for the vinyl. So there's going to be like a 500 pressing limited edition version of that we're doing. And
that's cool.
I've got the license for the 2 of the Trapeze records from Glenn Hughes, early 70s.
Oh, very cool.
So we're doing Medusa and You Are the Music. We're just the band. We're going to do those on vinyl for the first time they've ever been repressed since they first came out. So I'm kind of like, great. These will be limited edition, but they'll be cool collector's editions. And
we got to get you to.
I'm doing it because you preserve that music for another group of people, and it's.
The funny thing is, he said haunted music, and immediately I went to, so it's typo negative without lyrics.
Right. It's a little bit more. It's definitely more like synth generated stuff, but orchestrated. It's dark. It's stuff you would hear in a haunted house.
Very cool.
But it's so good. And it's like there's this whole movement on YouTube with these, the background, the ambient pictures, and then the movement scenes with this music. And he does a lot of that stuff, and it's just great. It's great background stuff. It's great, like, take me to another place kind of, stuff.
Right.
Well, pot's legal now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. People are going to love this stuff.
Yeah. Just right.
And the artwork that he's got is brilliant too. The stuff that he's done. So it's cool. We're doing a gatefold with this first one, and it's going to be really fun.
Dude,
we're working on a couple big things for next year too. So.
Just the fact that it's vinyl, that's huge.
Yeah.
Are you finding it hard to get vinyl though? I've heard that it's hard. It's becoming harder to get.
Well, it's expensive.
It was. We were a couple earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
It was taking as long as 8. It was taking almost 8 months to get an order done.
Right.
So now, I guess a lot of the pressing plants have kind of picked up their game, where they've got more equipment or whatever it is, because they were being overwhelmed basically with orders because everybody was pressing vinyl again. And but they've expanded. It's down now to where they can turn it around in less than 3 months.
That's awesome.
So it's really just.
Plus, you've got those ones that, like, you have different colors in them and shit, and
The
Guess Who records are going to be killer. They're actually shipping right now. So we did a smoked green vinyl limited edition that's like 250 copies, and we did this cool purple splatter. If you haven't seen artwork for the record, it's incredible. The guy that did all the Allman Brothers records, he did artwork for this. Ionis, I think his name is, and it's beautiful, beautiful stuff. And it just goes with the vibe of the record. It could have been made in 1976.
Okay.
It's just a great, great thing. I'm excited to be, a little part of that.
Yeah.
Pete's bringing bell bottoms back.
Yeah. There you go.
Big wingtip collars.
Wingtip collar, bell bottoms, peace symbols, and who knows, a Volkswagen Vanagon.
Yeah, I would look ridiculous in bell bottoms because I got big tree trunk. It's not my style at all, but musically that's my period. Like I love all that 70s stuff, and it's just because to me it was just every record was so different and experimentative, and just everything was so different and fun.
Well, you ought to fly back up to Syracuse for the Booty Foundation. Will be playing here up soon.
Yeah, get your bell bottoms and wingtip collars ready.
That is October 26th, I think.
I don't know.
22nd or 26th. I'll give you the date.
I remember going to see the original. Was it the Chick Magnets, right? The first
Well,
one.
Well, they when the Booty Foundation split.
Oh, okay.
Chick Magnets, and then yeah.
Okay. All right. So I remember seeing those guys when I think I was home on a college break. And I remember going out that night, and I was looking around, and I'm like, "There's 1,000 people in this place."
Yeah,
like it is packed to the gills, and people are here to see a disco band who was all great. I mean, they're all guys I knew from different bands,
yep.
Different rock bands. But it just made me smile that, like, at that moment in time, that somebody from our hometown came up with that idea. Because could there have been anything further from popularity at that moment?
No,
right.
And there. May of this year, Johnny Peluso, JT, again, East Syracuse Sling Court guy.
Yep.
You've got Kevin coming in, sitting in on one or two songs, but Jeff Totora flew in from Vegas to play.
Yeah.
You got all the guys, you got Steve Shadd on keyboards, and everybody's there. And they played locally at Sharky's, 850 people. And at the time, I don't know if Jim realized what he was getting himself into.
Probably not.
And said, "Well, you take the door, and I'll take." And of course, JT's like, "Not a problem."
Yeah, right. Exactly.
At $20 a ticket and $30 at the door, I will take 850 times that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing ads when they were doing cruises.
Yeah.
I think it was late '90s, early 2000s. I remember seeing them in magazines and stuff, like they were playing on cruise ships, and I'm like, brilliant. It's a brilliant thing. Like it's tailor made for that. Those guys could make a living just doing that.
They made in the career that they did, I think in 7 years they brought in over $500,000 as a local just cover disco cover tunes,
playing 6 nights a week.
Bringing in $500,000. I mean, there's a local band around here that would give their left nut to be close to that. To take a 0 or 2 off, they're fine.
Yeah,
Right.
And so God bless them. And I love the fact that they're showmen. They bring it back to actually putting on a full production. When they're in character, they're in character. Johnny's in the platform shoes and the leopard pants, and so and the fact that Totora's coming out to play drums. I mean, Starsky's coming out.
Yeah,
It's a great time. So there's something. Come visit home and have a Hyde's hot dog and some Columbus bread.
It's been a little while since I visited, so I'm overdue.
So I guess the last thing we got to ask you before we let you go is you got to tell us one of the most embarrassing things that ever happened to you in this business.
Oh.
You got one in the back of your brain because right now you just saw it on your face and you're going, I don't know if I want to tell that story.
I don't know.
Don't lie.
It's different for me. Like, as I've heard you ask this of musicians, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And it's there are obviously moments where those kind of things, like on stage, it's kind of it's a hard thing for me to think of because I've been so matter of fact about everything I've ever done in my career. I think it's embarrassing, maybe the wrong word for me. It's I think I had to not be embarrassed about anything to kind of put up with some of the nonsense that I put up with.
Yeah, right.
Definitely a fair enough answer, right?
But I mean, there's definitely been some moments of like cringy kind of moments that I've been a witness to, or I've actually been lucky. I've been lucky to avoid a lot of those too in my career, or miss natural disasters and things like that. I've been very fortunate in a lot of ways in that realm.
So give us a cringy moment.
Yeah, so cringy moments. We're trying not to name names. I guess it's there were.
They're not listening.
Well, yeah, you never know, right? It's there were definitely some moments where when Slash's ex-wife was still in the picture. There was this group of people that were hangers on all the time around that, because she was very much about that scene and the And we butted heads a lot. There were a lot of things. She knew I was always super honest, but she didn't always like the way that I told her, right? Because I just told you, this is how it comes out, you know?
Yeah, right.
I'm not trying to be difficult about it. I'm just trying to point out that you wanted me to do this, and this was our mission. So when you ask me to do something stupid, I'm just going to tell you this isn't going to work with our mission. It's not working out that way.
Right.
There were some moments that happened, and a couple of things were challenges that we faced on the first tour that were really difficult, because it was the first time he'd ever toured stripped down in a long time. You know, I mean, he had Velvet Revolver had a certain level of success. There was a comfort level with all that stuff. And we had, you know, we brought in these great musicians playing in his band, you know, Todd Kearns and Brent Fitz, and, you know, Frank Sidoris later on, and Miles, of course. And on our first tour through Europe, Todd's retina starts to detach. And we weren't sure what caused it. You know, it's kind of people say that sometimes lighter eyes are weaker, and that, you know, pressure in the planes and things like that can do that kind of thing. But it was just kind of this freak thing that was happening, but it wasn't happening all at once. It was just starting. So he's having like blurred vision in one eye. So you see a lot of video from that tour where he's wearing sunglasses on stage, because, you know, we're facing into the sun on a festival stage, or this thing's going on.
Right.
So the last two shows of that tour are in Russia. So we get on a plane and we fly into Russia. And it's the first time I've been there. And we've got this guy that's, you know, his eye could go at any time. Right.
Right.
He's made it all the way through this tour. Now we've been on planes, we've been on buses, we got all this stuff. We're last two shows. The night before the show in Moscow, my phone rings at like 1 a.m, and it's him. And he told me that he's starting to see the shadow raising up from underneath his eye. And the doctors told us that if he starts to do that, the retina's detaching, we got to get him home, and he's got to go right into surgery. Right. But this surgery at the time involves putting this bubble in your eye.
Yes.
And you have to lay face down, you know, on this table for like 4 weeks or some shit like that.
Yeah.
For it to heal and settle. So we got a show the next night, 2 sold out shows in Russia, one in Moscow, one in St. Petersburg. And in between, we're supposed to take the old train, the old passenger train that they used to shuttle all the dignitaries around on during the communist years, to avoid them being bombed or whatever it was, you know, like they have this whole system, right? So they've turned it into a passenger train in the country, and it's just better than flying on a Russian airline. So, so it's 1 a.m. and I had already kind of had a contingency plan in place for this if it happened. I just didn't expect it to really take place. So I have to get management on the phone, and of course I hear from his wife, and she gets wind of my plan. And she doesn't approve of my plan. And she was as matter of fact as they came. And she said to me, tell him to suck it up and finish the tour. And I'm like, you don't suck up going blind. Right.
No,
and I just slammed my phone down, and I'm like, I'm taking care of it. I hung up the phone. And I'm like, I'm going to get fired after this, but it's, you know, but this is what I got to do. I'm out here. She's in LA, you know, so there's these things that have to be done. So lucky for us, there's this gentleman named John Douglas, who was our drum tech. And John Douglas is an artist. He's done all the Van Halen, Aerosmith drum kits that you've ever seen, all the ZZ Top drum kits. He paints. He's done Joe Perry's guitar with his wife on it. That's his painting.
Yeah.
And John Douglas is now the drummer in Aerosmith.
Yes.
At the time, John Douglas had played in a band in the 80s, and I don't want to say the name because I'm not sure if I'm going to get it right or not, so I don't want to mess it up. But he was also the only other drummer that's ever been on stage with ZZ Top. Frank had an appendix burst or something when he was out on the road once, and JD sat in and played the gig. No one else has ever done that with ZZ at that time. Like, Dusty was still alive. No one had ever played on stage. 3 guys. So John Douglas gets a phone call from me at 2:00 in the morning. And I said, so John, you're going to play drums tomorrow and you're going to play drums in St. Petersburg. And he goes, what the hell are you talking about? I said, Todd's got to go home. His eye's coming apart. We got to send him home, and you're going to be the drummer. So he's like, I said, can you do it? And he sat there for a minute quiet. And he goes, I mean, he goes, if we trim the set a little bit, he goes, yeah. He goes, I should be able to pull it off. I said, okay, great. So I called Brent Fitz, who's the drummer, and I said, so you're going to play bass tomorrow? And he goes, yeah, okay, I'm ready to go. So the next day they go to sound check. John Douglas has been at the gig all day long. He set up the gear. He went into the dressing room with headphones and was listening to live shows the whole time. And they go out and they do a sound check. They played a full set. They trimmed it down by like a half hour. They played like 100-minute set that night.
Right.
And John Douglas had no rehearsal other than that soundtrack. And Brent Fitz played every bass part just like Todd played it and sang most of the backing vocals that he did.
Because Todd's got a really high range.
Yeah. So Fitz did all of his parts that he could do. Couldn't sing all this stuff in like Starlight or anything like that.
Right.
He was doing all the bass. And we made it through the last 2 shows of that tour because of that. And that was, most tour managers would have never known that the guys in that band or the guys in that crew could have pulled out.
Yeah.
It was just something that I had known JD for years. So we knew each other. You know, I knew what he was capable of. And I knew Brent Fitz. And I knew everything I needed to know about that guy. And so it did not surprise me when he stepped up there and did that.
That's so.
Yeah, that's great.
That's cool.
There's some video of those shows floating around online, and it's just, you know, most people would never have known.
Another upstate New York guy had something like that happen to him, and that was Sal G.
Yep.
So
Sal was on tour with us with Slash. Like Sal is
drum tech.
He's one of my favorite people. Yeah, he was doing the year after that. Sal was our drum tech.
Okay.
Yep.
And then so Sal went on to drum tech for Stained. Yep. And then when their drummer left, they said to him, do you think you can do it? And he was telling me the story. He's like, I just said, yeah, I got it.
Yep.
He's great. And what a great guy. What a great guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've seen the video of him and Kevin doing that.
The drum
drum off or whatever.
Like it's
really.
like
it was almost like a tech thing. You know? They start doing their rudiments and they're like a clinic. Like
that's exactly what they called it. They called it a drum clinic.
Yeah, and it was so good. It was so good. And I was so happy because Sal is such a great guy, man. It's just like, I loved it. Loved every minute. I was seeing the 2 of them together. Made me smart, you know. And I was like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to get Sal on. He's like, well, when I get done touring, I'm like, Stained never gets done touring.
No,
it's like, dude.
They'll never break. Well, you're gonna have to record it during Christmas time. You might get a little time off.
Well, we told him probably at the end of, he said the end of September, October, and you know, we're getting there. And whether he can do the show or not, I'd rather go sit around a campfire and talk, drink booze and talk golf and drums.
When you talk to him, please tell him I said hello. I love that guy, man.
We'll do.
Such a good dude.
Yeah.
And there's one story that I want to tell before I let you go.
Please do.
And you asked me about the basses back here, and so for years I played in cover bands. I did that up in Syracuse, but I was in high school, so I didn't really play out a lot there. But when I came down to Florida, I played a lot more, and I met this guy named Wade Jackson, and he had been in a band called the Cadillac Brats in the 80s. They were signed to Enigma. That record got shelved when their company went under, and the record never came out. Rock Candy ended up releasing it 10 years ago or so.
Yeah, not long ago.
And Wade became like the second music teacher that I ever had.
Right.
I filled in for their bass player, this guy Gary Nutt, who played with Chubby Checker and Mike Tramp and Cinderella and all these things. Gary's he still plays professionally now. A great bass player. He was in the band Tangier out of Philadelphia.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Late 80s, early 90s. Did a couple of records. And Gary was just killer bass player in this cover band down here on the east coast of Florida. Great musicians, the whole band. Yeah. And they asked me to fill in for Gary when he was going out on tour while I was home for like 8 weeks. So I had to learn 60 songs in a month in Wade's garage with him. And Wade and I just built this friendship from that experience. And years have passed. I'm touring all the time, so we just don't have a chance to play. And he's moved to North Carolina. And we started this little project in his garage years before, where we were doing like stoner rock covers of old songs.
Mm-hmm.
We started to record, 4-track demos of things. And he called me up one day and he goes, with all this technology now, we can actually continue that, even though we're not anywhere near each other. And I said, that'd be great. That would be a great way to keep both of us playing, to keep us both having fun, and still be able to do music together.
Right.
And so we started to work on songs just for ourselves. We were doing stuff like Ring of Fire and Stepping Stone from the Monkees, and kind of the more we did, the weirder the songs got.
Right.
And so we get to 10 or 11 songs, and this is probably 2018, 17 or 18 when he calls me up and he goes, "Why don't we put this out? We've got 10 songs. Why don't we put it out?" I said, "Okay." I said, "I'd love to do that, but if we do it, I want to press vinyl. I want to learn how this works," because at the time I had never done any of that before. So I'd just been managing a band called Shadow and the Thrill, which I got signed to Deco Entertainment, which is how I got introduced to those guys. And I asked the guys there, I'm like, "Who do you use to press vinyl?" And they made the introductions. And so I went about the process of figuring out how to do this. And he goes, "All right, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to come up with a name and, put something together for the fun of this." So now it's 2019. We're working on all this. We finished up a couple more songs. So we had 11 tracks that we were going to do. And we get to this point. He goes, "All right, what are we going to call this thing?" And this is all pre-pandemic. And I said, "Well, I'm still in the music business. I want to have a little bit of anonymity here, right? So I wanted to come up with a way where we could hide who we were, but and make fun of the music business, because that was really the goal of it. Was we were having a good time, and I wanted to do like funny video bits to kind of mock some of the things that happen in the music industry. So we're like, all right. So we come up with this idea, and I'm playing around with it, and we're coming up with names, and we ended up calling it Doom Slide. And I came up with this imagery of where we would wear plague doctor masks.
Okay.
Right? And so we get all this done. I got this great artwork designed, got the name, the logos, all the way that I wanted it. I had this crazy vision of this thing. And we're going to get it pressed. So I have the artwork done and I send it to him. He's like, "This is amazing. This is going to be great." So Wade played guitar, played all the drums, sang parts of the record. I ended up singing, lead singing on like 85% of it, something I never did before in my life. And we had a blast doing this. So I came up with this whole thing, and he engineered it and produced it, the whole deal. Like one of the most talented music people I've ever known in my life. We get this record done, and I order the pressing, right? 3 weeks later, the world shuts down, and there's this pandemic, and I'm like, the cover of this record has 2 plague doctors standing outside of a burning city, right? And the name of the band is called Doom Slide. It's all post-apocalyptic imagery, this whole thing.
Sure.
And this is not a good idea. but it's going to be, we're not going to get the record until September, right? So I'm excited. It's going to be fun. We're going to sell it to our friends. We did 250. I think I did 300 copies of it. I figured between the two of us, we could sell 150 of these. And the other ones we just give away to people that are record people, and have fun.
Yeah.
So we started making videos. We've got 4 videos that we put out for it. We did a cover of Britney Spears' Toxic, like a stoner rock metal thing, right? We did I Want Your Sex from George Michael's. It's absolutely ridiculous. And about a year and a half ago, right before Halloween, I lost Wade. He was 57 years old, had a massive blood clot, killed him instant. And we've talked about all these people that were really important to me in my life, my career, and Buzz Kua, one of the most important figures of my entire life as a musician, but as a person from Syracuse. And Wade Jackson is the other music teacher that I had in my life, right? And I have to talk about him in any of these things because I've lost a lot of people in my life over the years. I lost a lot of people during the pandemic time, and whether it was from cancer or whatever else. And but that one hit me the hardest. And Deco, in their amazing support of everything that I've helped do with them, is actually going to release the record and distribute it. which, for me, I was just selling it to people myself,
Right.
Yeah. And it was all people we knew. So like, give me your $20. Here's the digital download card. Here's the record. Get out of here.
Right.
Frame it and thank you for supporting us. But they're actually going to put it out for around Halloween, which is fun. When you pack up 100 copies of a record that I've had sitting here that I haven't really listened to in a few months because, sometimes it's hard to go back and listen to stuff. But man, it makes me so happy that I'm getting to put that out and people get to hear how talented that guy was. And I think that if I'm grateful for anything that I've gotten to do this year, on top of my amazing business partner, Kristen, that I've been working with on real estate and the Jets, this is kind of one of the highlights of this whole thing for me, right? And this change of life that I've gone through. And then I get to kind of let people hear this guy's talent in some way, shape, or form, And so I'm excited that that's going to be out. And, if I get a link for the pre-orders, I'll send it to you guys. But it's they're distributing it out there, and it's going to be a fun thing. And if you get a chance to go and listen to it, I should just send you a vinyl copy of it. I'll send you guys a couple of copies. And
very cool.
Very cool.
You guys will have a laugh listening to it because it's done tongue in cheek, but it's very done good. Really well. And we just had a lot of fun with it. And it's something that I think it's important for musicians to remember to have fun with everything that they do.
Yes.
Because it's it's not everybody's career or path or talent that gets to bring a little joy to people, when they get on stage or when they make a record. So that's just, thanks for letting me plug that.
Sure, absolutely. Pete, we said the same words yesterday. We had on yesterday. We had
Mike
Farrar, and Mike Farrar he's been a Syracuse musician for 30 some odd years. And we said the same thing. It's about putting smiles on people's face. It's about the entertainment. It's letting them. Sometimes as musicians we forget. And we get wrapped up in our own day-to-day, and so we get on stage and we may be having a shit day, and it can transpose into your show. We forget sometimes that we're there to keep them having fun. They're dancing, they're entertained, and when they're having a good time, sometimes it reflects back. We have the good, but no matter what, we got to stay on that. And too many people lose the reason that we do what we do. And that's why Jeff and I do this.
Yep.
We think we're bringing a different light to the industry. Not that we've given up our own aspirations of making music but this is really, people are coming up and thanking us at shows, at events. We were getting asked to do benefits, to sit at a table and just meet people. I'm like, us? Great. Really?
Yeah. Have you
guys
met us?
I'm seeing every event in town before you know it, right?
Well, you know what? And if people say you gave up music, no, we didn't give up playing. But this means a lot to people. What we're doing is because they get to see their artists in different aspects of this business that they may have never been able to do or see or hear. Yeah. And so that's why we're thanking you.
Yes.
I know you thank us for having you on, but we're thanking you for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You brought a light that no one could tell that story that you did.
No.
Any of those stories.
Any of them.
Except you.
It's my pleasure. Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's fun to share some of those experiences, especially now after I've kind of stepped away from that part of it. And it's, I can tell some stories that I probably couldn't have if I still wanted to work in the business.
Right, exactly.
But, there's some stuff we'll tell more, I'm sure, at another time. But it's I was blessed to be in it for as long as I did. I've never been a smoker or a drinker or a drug guy at all. So for me, it was kind of I got to observe a lot of things from a very together point of view, where a lot of guys don't, and I've got a lot of great memories about it, and I'm very blessed to have been able, and that's something that I am sincere about. I did miss out on a lot of personal things, family moments, and that stuff is hard, especially now that a lot of those people are gone.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think we all kind of make those. We all find the different points in our lives where we have to go and chase what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like that was the industry I was supposed to be in for all this time. And the great part is that I'm finding a new way to be involved in it and keep it going on some small level.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, in a way, help a little label that I just really love the guys that own it. You know, the two guys that own the label are musicians, and I get to be a little part of that and kind of throw some new things their way with just the good people that I know, you know, through the business.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm just happy that I get to do that. And it's fun to be able to talk about some of this stuff here and there and, you know, kind of put a spotlight on some of the good times that a lot of people wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we appreciate what you've done for us so far. And, we're excited to have.
You're gonna love talking to Michael.
Yes.
Michael's gonna be great on this show. And like I said, I got a few more people that I got to reach out to and see if we can get them to do one.
Quake
Awesome.
/ yeah.
Yeah, right. That top hat guy. Yeah. We got to track down the songwriter guy that we talked about, though. I got to track him down. The guy that I always forget his name, but he co-wrote with Rick Kua on all of his stuff, and then did some stuff with Kiss and Judas Priest, and he's a Syracuse guy.
Oh, I know exactly. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
I can't remember his name either, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
And as soon as I see it, I'll be like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
nice.
Oh, yeah. Well, anybody knows, they're like, that's the guy that wrote the Priest songs and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. But, yeah, any help you can give, we appreciate. And anytime you know, when that thing comes out,
yeah,
I think we need to, and you know our schedule is just freaking bonkers. I want to book something now for a couple months from now, so that when that album does come out, let's promote the shit out of it. You know, and
that'd be great. That'll be a lot of fun. And I just want people to hear Wade.
Yeah,
for sure.
We want some more light brought to a Syracuse musician that deserves some attaboy stuff. So, you know, as my daughter calls it, you know, you deserve to get some accolades.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Well, I appreciate you guys, man. I love what you're doing, and it's a lot of fun. The interviews that I've watched have been great. And
thanks, Pete.
Just keep it going, man. It's a
Thank you.
It's a great town to talk about. You know, there's so much history there that so many people don't know what's come out of that town.
Yep.
You know?
Well, if you hear one that's not good, you know, just text me. Like,
Let
Mike, yesterday's was a stinker.
That was a real stinker, yeah.
You're like, it's not my fault. Jeff brought the show down. I'll be like, somebody did it. It's never me.
Maybe I'll be the guy buying a soda from somebody that you're interviewing next time. Who knows? You know, so we'll figure that out.
Yeah, right.
So as long as you don't call anybody anything inappropriate.
Yes.
Exactly.
No editing.
No editing.
Oh my God.
None.
No editing, please.
All right, guys, thanks a lot, man. Well, I look forward to the next one.
Yes.
All right, man.
And,
Thank you,
and I'll see you down in Florida.
I'm looking forward to that.
That's a promise. So.
All
right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take it easy, man.
You got it.
There you go. Just another.
That was cool.
Another great show.
Yeah.
See you, brother.
Cool. Thank you guys so much, man.
See you.
Yep.
Look at that. Another show. Another great time.
Yep.
What?
I know.
I told you.
You can never, ever hear his stories
from anyone. No.
You know, you think you can.
Yeah, we've had
but
people
this dude's
on,
the guy who's behind the scenes.
Yeah. We've had people on that played with.
Taking care of their money.
Yeah.
You know, making sure like the story. You guys are going to hear it. We're not going to recap it. So.
But or they've already heard it. And then it's a part of the business that I hope you guys liked.
Yeah.
When I talked to Pete the first time, I came back to Jeff and I said, dude, this is going to be an incredible interview because he said so many things to us today and to me before that I never had a clue.
No.
And I thought I was pretty, well versed on music business. There's so many aspects of that business that neither one of us get. No. And he brought a good light to it, and the fact that he's passionate about Syracuse. He's passionate about helping people from Syracuse. He's been very instrumental to Jeff and I already.
Yeah.
I just I don't know how to say it enough. I got it. There's one more thing I got to do, and I can't.
Can't find it?
No, I can. I just wanted to be. I want to make sure I pronounced it correctly.
Okay.
But Raph Saravallo, is who introduced me to Peter, and I hope Raph is listening. But Raph is also a good friend of Jeff Tatora's.
Yep.
That's how he and I met in Canandaigua watching the Femmes of Rock. It's not about what you know; it's about who you know. But it's about the relationships that this show is bringing to us, and I can't stress enough to thank you guys. I know I got a trucker's mouth and a sense of humor that usually will make a hooker blush, but no offense.
It's okay. I know I do take offense when you say
you
hooker.
do it. Well, you are a male.
I am a male hooker.
You're a whore.
You're a whore.
No, see, this was a heartfelt fucking moment. You just blew it.
You'll be fine. Thank
you for listening as much as you guys do. I can't say it enough.
Dude, it's great to have, so many people comment and it's just it's very
We
cool
may
thing.
not have 44,000 subscribers.
Right.
And we may not be financially worth it for you to be on our show.
Right.
But for those who you do come on our show without telling us, it wouldn't be worth it for me to be on your show. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And for those who want to tell us what we're going to talk about during our show, and we'll only come on if we follow a script.
Negative.
I say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's another phrase I was thinking, but I'm not going to say it.
I think sorry is a good one.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
So,
do you want
Jeff?
Do you want a tissue, bud?
Nope. Okay. I'm going to tell you to go sorry yourself.
All right, go sorry yourself. Very good. Music.
We don't have to thank any sponsors, anybody. Just thanking you guys for sticking around. We got all kinds of good shit coming up. That's all I'm going to say.
That's it?
Who's next? Is Nina next?
No. Well, you know what? Yes.
Nina is next.
Yes.
Nina D. Gregorio from the Femmes of Rock.
Yep.
And then, jeez, there's so many.
You don't have time. This music's going to run out here.
Yeah,
very quick.
Nina, Max McGee, Rick Latham, Vinny the drummer, Jeff Tripoli, Johnny Peluso, Laura Stesser, George Rossi, and so many more.
Yeah.
Stick around. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.
Recording stopped.